It's 9:29 p.m., April 4th, 2026, and the Soulmate's tracking signal went dark. A system that continuously broadcasts a vessel's identity, position, and speed, designed to keep a boat visible to anyone watching the water, went completely silent. It came back on at 8:40 the following morning. 11 hours of darkness. During those 11 hours, Brian Hooker says he was not on the boat. He says he was in a powerless dinghy paddling alone in the dark. He says the Soulmate was sitting empty in Aunt Pat's Bay. But there is one thing on that boat that investigators are now studying very closely. A camera. A $33,000 thermal infrared camera, capable of detecting a human heat signature in total darkness from a quarter-mile away. It was aboard the Soulmate the night Lynette disappeared. Brian apparently never told anyone about it. At 9:29 p.m. on April 4th, the Soulmate stopped transmitting. Someone had to turn it off. Brian says he wasn't aboard. The boat has been talking to investigators ever since. This is not a recap of the GPS story. You can watch that separately. This video is about the boat, what it was doing, what it stopped doing, what was on it that investigators are now pulling apart piece by piece in a federal evidence warehouse. The Soulmate is being examined right now. Every computer system, every digital device, everything that recorded anything. This episode is about what they are going to find. Subscribe. Let's go through it. A 46-foot sailboat is not a vacation. For Brian and Lynette Hooker, it was their home. 12 years of live-aboard sailing, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, the open Atlantic. They documented every stretch of it. Lynette on deck, the boat in harbor. The kind of life most people talk about and very few actually build. The Soulmate was what they had built together. Boats like Soulmate, modern offshore cruising vessels, carry an extraordinary amount of technology. Navigation systems, satellite internet, security cameras, battery management systems, electronic chart plotters, communication equipment. Brian Hooker understood all of it. By trade, he was an AT&T telecommunications technician, a man whose professional life was electronic systems, data recording, and network infrastructure. He was the technical side of the Soulmate. Friends described him as someone who invested significant time in the boat's digital upgrades. He knew how these systems worked. He knew how they recorded. He knew what they kept. Every system he installed, every upgrade he made, every digital record those systems generated, all of it is now in a warehouse, being examined by investigators who understand exactly what those systems are capable of capturing. Most viewers of this video know the outline. Keep it brief. April 4th, 2026, Hopetown, Bahamas. Approximately 7:30 p.m., Brian and Lynette left the Hopetown dock in their 8-foot dinghy, heading for the Soulmate anchored in Aunt Pat's Bay. Brian says the water turned rough. He says Lynette went overboard. He says she had the engine key in her pocket. The motor died when she went in. He says he paddled for hours in the dark before arriving at the Marsh Harbor boatyard at approximately 4 a.m. on April 5th. That is the account. It has not changed. The Soulmate, according to Brian, was sitting empty and unoccupied the entire night. Nobody aboard. Nothing happening. The boat says otherwise. This detail comes from Fox News Digital, who obtained it independently from marine tracking company VesselFinder, not from investigators, not from Brian. From public marine tracking data. Every vessel of a certain size is equipped with an automatic identification system AIS. It broadcasts continuously. Identity, position, speed. Transmitted automatically, constantly, as long as the system is powered and functioning. The Soulmate's AIS data shows one thing with precision. At 9:29 p.m. on April 4th, 2026, Soulmate stopped transmitting. The signal disappeared from every tracking system watching the Sea of Abaco. It did not resume until 8:40 a.m. on April 5th. 11 hours. 11 minutes. Brian Hooker left Hopetown at approximately 7:30 p.m. He says Lynette went overboard sometime in the following hours. He says he paddled through the night. At 9:29 p.m., roughly 2 hours after they left the dock, Someone or something caused the Soulmate's AIs to stop transmitting. At 9:29 p.m. on April 4th, the Soulmate stopped transmitting. Someone had to turn it off. Brian says he wasn't aboard. Kenneth Engerand is an adjunct professor of maritime law at the University of Houston Law Center. He spoke directly to Fox News Digital about the AIS blackout. His words, on the record. If the AIs had stopped altogether and never came back on, then you would assume there was some sort of catastrophic failure on the system. But when it went off and then came back on some hours later, that's an action whereby the system was turned off or disabled. Not a failure, not a storm, a deliberate action. A system that fails catastrophically does not resolve itself 11 hours later at a convenient time. A system that goes dark and then comes back on is a system that someone intervened with. Former federal prosecutor Thomas D. Biase, also speaking to Fox News, I believe there's evidence that the tracking of the boat was turned off at a time that closely parallels around the time that she went missing. All of those things are highly suspicious. The boat's tracking went dark at 9:29 p.m. It came back on at 8:40 the next morning. Between those two timestamps, Lynette Hooker disappeared, and Brian Hooker paddled to shore and returned to spend 24 hours aboard the Soulmate alone. Before we get into what investigators believe may have been happening aboard the Soulmate during those 11 hours, and the camera they found on board that Brian apparently never mentioned, subscribe to Crime Deepcut. When the warehouse examination produces findings, we will be here. 11 hours. The AIs is dark. The boat is sitting in Aunt Pat's Bay. Brian says nobody is aboard. What investigators are now examining, beyond the AIS blackout itself, is what the Soulmate's other systems may have recorded during those 11 hours. Investigative reporting from Ashley Banfield's Drop Dead Serious, and from a separate investigative channel covering this case, has described investigators examining the Soulmate's lithium battery system data, logs that may show electrical activity aboard the vessel during the critical window. This has not been officially confirmed by U.S. federal agencies. It is what investigative reporting has described investigators looking for. Similarly, reporting has described investigators examining Starlink internet router logs, records that may show whether devices connected to the Soulmate's onboard network during the 11 hours the AIs was dark. What is confirmed, the FBI laboratory at Quantico is processing evidence from the Soulmate. Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker told Fox News Digital that investigators will take any sort of digital devices, any computer systems you can extract, anything of that sort. Every system, every log, every record, the AIS record, the battery logs, the router activity, the navigation history, the infrared camera footage, every electronic system that was running aboard that boat on the night of April 4th is now in a federal evidence warehouse. 11 hours of data. 11 hours that Brian says the boat sat empty. The boat was recording. That is what it does, automatically, continuously. The Soulmate had a thermal infrared camera aboard, a FLIR system, forward-looking infrared. The same technology the Coast Guard uses from helicopters to find people in the water at night. A camera that detects body heat, that can identify a person's heat signature at distance, in complete darkness, in open water. It was valued at approximately $33,000. It had a self-tracking feature capable of recording movement approaching or leaving the boat, capable of capturing anyone arriving at or departing the Soulmate in the dark. And if it had been pointed toward the water the night Lynette disappeared, the night she allegedly went overboard in the dark waters of the Sea of Abaco, that camera had the capability to find her, a camera that could have found Lynette aboard the Soulmate. The night she disappeared, apparently never used, apparently never mentioned. Daniel Danforth is a friend of the couple. He told News Nation that Brian did not appear to have used the camera that night. Danforth told the Coast Guard about the camera in early May, a month after Lynette disappeared. He described the moment investigators heard about it. They were actually very glad to hear the information because it was the first it was brought to their attention. The first time the Coast Guard heard about a $33,000 thermal infrared camera on the Soulmate was from a friend, in May, more than a month after Lynette went missing. Everything points to it not being an accident at all, Danforth told News Nation. There's never been a consistent story. CBS News has confirmed investigators are examining the infrared camera as part of the ongoing probe. It is being processed at Quantico, a camera that could have found Lynette aboard the boat that night, apparently never disclosed to the people searching for her. Karli Aylesworth is Lynette's daughter. She has been the clearest public voice in this investigation from the first day. Every development, every confirmed detail, every moment the family was asked to speak, Karli was there. She provided her DNA to investigators. She has spoken to every major network. In the last week, she told NBC News something that reframes the case entirely. Brian had made threats about this exact scenario, more than once. Her words, "On the record, he's threatened it, I'm pretty sure, multiple times, and has done actions to her that have hurt her." The fact that this is happening now is kind of coincidental. It's just funny because he said he was going to do this, and now it's happening. He said he was going to do this, and now it's happening. NBC News also documented a 2015 incident. Brian and Lynette, both present, both accused each other of assault that evening. A warrant was denied for insufficient evidence. Documented. Not proof of what happened in 2026. But Karli says she was watching a pattern develop for years. She reported the specific threats to the FBI. Karli has been fighting for her mother from the first day. The threats she described to NBC News are now part of a federal criminal investigation. She is still waiting for her mother. The warehouse examination of the Soulmate is underway. The FLIR camera footage, if anything was recorded, is being processed at Quantico. When results emerge from that lab, Crime Deepcut will be here. Subscribe so you are here when it happens. After arriving at Marsh Harbor Boatyard at approximately 4 a.m. on April 5th, Brian was taken back to the Soulmate by search and rescue officials. He stayed aboard for approximately 24 hours, alone, on the vessel, while Lynette's family in Michigan waited for information. While her daughter was pushing investigators to act, Brian was on the Soulmate for 24 hours. The AIS came back on at 8:40 a.m. on April 5th, when search and rescue returned him to the boat. Fox News Digital's VesselFinder data shows the AI story did not end there. 3 more blackouts were recorded between April 10th and April 13th. 3 more periods where the Soulmate's tracking went silent. The AI's going dark wasn't a single event. It happened again, and again, and again. A U.S. official confirmed to Fox News Digital that once the Soulmate was pulled from the water at Fort Lauderdale, it would be transported to a warehouse for full forensic examination. Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker described what that means. Any sort of digital devices that you can take, any computer systems you can extract, anything of that sort will be taken in. Every device, every log, every record. Brian Hooker has not been charged. He denies any wrongdoing. He told NBC News, "I've never harmed Lynette, and I would never harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette." That denial sits alongside a federal criminal investigation, an FBI evidence lab, a federal warehouse full of electronic systems, a thermal camera nobody in authority heard about for over a month, and an AIS record that an expert on the record describes as a deliberate human action. The investigation is building, system by system, log by log, piece by piece. The Soulmate recorded 11 hours of AI's darkness. It may have recorded battery activity during those hours, router activity, electrical events. It carried a thermal camera that could see in the dark. But there are things no system on that boat recorded. What Lynette was thinking when they left Hopetown that evening, whether she felt uneasy, what she had planned for that week, who she wanted to call. Lynette Hooker is 55 years old, from Onstead, Michigan. She spent 12 years building a life on that water. Her daughter Karli posted on Mother's Day, "It's pretty hard right now to know that she's not a text away anymore. The FLIR camera aboard the Soulmate could have found Lynette in the dark that night. It wasn't used. Now it's in a warehouse, being processed. The boat has been talking this entire time. At 9:29 p.m. when the tracking went dark, during 11 hours of silence, at 8:40 a.m. when it came back on, every log, every system, every record, it has been talking. Investigators are finally listening to all of it. This investigation is still active. When the warehouse examination produces results, when Quantico releases findings, when the next development breaks, Crime Deepcut will be here. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. This case is not finished. At 9:29 p.m. on April 4th, someone turned off the Soulmate's tracking system. The boat went dark for 11 hours. When it came back on, Lynette Hooker was gone. At 9:29 p.m. on April 4th, the Soulmate stopped transmitting. Brian says he wasn't aboard. The boat has been talking to investigators ever since, through its AIS record, through its thermal camera, through every system that was running that night. A federal evidence warehouse now holds all of it. The boat knows what happened. Investigators are going to find out. Crime Deepcut stays on this case. When the next update breaks, we will be here